Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nitsa coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today. I wanted to talk to you about how you can make your mixes sound less flat. You know, how can you make your mixes jump out of the screen, jump out of the phone, right? Something that's gonna help you catch the attention of the listener and be like, hey, you know, this is a song, this is tangible, this is a real thing that I can really get myself into and start showing my friends because it feels like it's larger than life, right? That's what this video is going to be today, how to avoid your mixes from being flat, okay? So let's jump right into it today. I'm going to play the song that I have right here, but let's just play it and let's hear it, all right?
Hey, yeah, hey. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no need to announce it. I pay what I weigh and increase with them ounce. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce it. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no.
But the most important thing that I wanted to talk about today is how you can make your mixes kind of jump off the, jump off the page, jump off the screen, right? How it can, become something that the listener can really be like, wow, like this is competing to an industry song, and it's not just a home recording. You don't ever want the listener to ever feel like oh, well, this song can't stack up to a Drake song or a Future song, because at the end of the day, guys, you got to understand, we actually all have the same tools. It's literally a blessing right now to be making music. It's crazy how people, they're still complaining and saying, oh, you need to show me how to do this and do that. But think about it. Like, if you watch any engineer, any professional engineer, you literally have the same exact tools that they have. They use the Waves plugins, they use the UAD plugins, Plugin Alliance, Slate. It don't matter about the plugins, but I'm just trying to say that we have the same tools. So a part of your mixes being flat is your mindset. You got to think big. If you have a flat mindset and you keep blaming it on the plugins, well, guess what? It's gonna manifest into the music, right? You can't be thinking small. You have to think big. You got to think like, wow, any song that I make can blow up because I'm gonna try my hardest. That's a part of having your mixes sound big. That has nothing to do with plugins. It's your mindset. It's your heart. Don't make no shortcuts. Don't cut no corners. Do everything that you can to make a song sound as good as it can be, right? And then be satisfied with it and walk away from it, right? So with the mix like this, the very first thing that I like to do is I like to use a multi-band saturation, right? And the reason why I like to use multi-band saturation is, let's think about back in the day, right? Them boys back in the day, they didn't need to use saturators because they had so many different pieces of equipment and just their overall signal workflow, the way it was comprised of, right? The way it was like put together, right? Them boys, the way their stuff was put together, they literally had all that saturation built in, right? They had a microphone, more than likely probably like a tube microphone or something like that, right? Depending on the topology of the microphone, right? They were getting a little bit of saturation from those components, right? The tube, when it's hot, it has a certain sound to it, right? It's giving it a richness and a creaminess. Then they probably had like a preamp. They probably had like something like a Neve, or maybe a little bit of the preamp coming from the board that they was recording into. So that gave them a little saturation, right? That's the harmonic content. That's the density that's giving the song size and not having it sound flat, right? Then the next thing they had after that, what did they have after that, Nick? They also had the console, right? And all of the inputs and the outputs of the console, right? They had the channel strips, right? The console, it had a little bit of drive in it. You could crank it up, whether it be the mic preamp or the line preamp, or just even running it through the just straight up like that, running it through the EQ, circuit or the compression circuit, all of that good stuff, right? That gave them saturation. Then the actual literally the fader, the fader gave them some saturation too, right? That's why I try to tell you, some of those analog plugins like that fader is actually going to change the amount of color that you get, the amount of grit that you get, right? And then after that, they had it going into the tape machine. The tape machine was giving them, literally the tape machine itself was giving them some saturation. Some of the times those tape machines, they had transformers in it. They had transistors, resistors, all of them little components that I always tell y'all should just take a little quick minute to look at what they do and, or how they change the sound. Then after that, they literally had the tape, right? They literally had the sound of the tape, right? When they was recording track after track that's building up, right? Collective harmonic distortion. all of that stuff made the song sound bigger. It made it sound larger than life. It made it just jump off the page. That's why when you go listen to a song from back in the day, it sounds so big and so huge and you can hear everything. But then when you hear some digital recordings, if not done properly, don't get me wrong, a digital recording can still sound good, guys. It's all the same stuff. It's all about your mindset, right? But some digital recordings, they can sound small if not done correctly, because maybe there's a lack of harmonic density, a lack of that noise too plays into it too. Like the noise, literally, you're filling up your music with noise, you know? And that's why I say using the noise is important too, because it can make it can make your music sound a little bit fuller. Let's think about noise. When you got a little tea inside of a little kennel, right? And the tea starts whistling, it starts making that noise, right? It tells you that, hey, this teapot is full of water. It's done. It's finished boiling. You feel me? So that's kind of a cue that your human ear uses too as well. You know, noise, it's filling up that space, right? So let's listen to the multiband saturation. I prefer to use the multiband saturator on hip hop because sometimes, just depending on how the 808 sounds, this is a perfect example that I got right here. You will hear like sometimes the saturation can change the way the 808 sounds. So that's why I prefer to use the multiband. Now, some people like to use something like Black Box, or they like to use the UAD Culture Vulture or Saturn 2 on the mix bus. It doesn't matter about the plugins. It just matters about the function and like just the mindset that you have using it into it. So I'm using the saturation to give me fullness, right? Let's play it with and without it.
Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no need to announce it. I pay what I weigh and increase with them ounce. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce it. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no need to announce it. I pay what I weigh and increase with them ounce. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce it. Yeah, part of my French, but it's...
So harmonic saturation is very important because listen to the way it just opens up the top. Listen to the way, and you guys can copy the preset. Look at the little crossover points. This is nothing crazy, you know. I'm just trying to tell you guys that, you know, the function of this, you know, specific like module or any, you know, saturation plugin in general. Saturator X is another great one too. Even using maybe a tape emulation, that's a great thing too, to slap on the mix bus, depending on what type of tape you use and all that stuff. You know, it will help open the song up without doing any boosting EQ or anything like that. It's not only adding color, but it's just adding more of everything, more of the piano, more of the reverb, more of the delay, more of the sheen, can I say, from the auto-tune. You can hear the way the auto-tune is transitioning to humanize. You can hear everything better, right? And let's pay attention to how the 808 literally changes when I saturate it. That's why I like a multi-band saturator, because I can turn it on and off.
Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no need to announce it. I pay what I weigh and increase with them ounce. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce it. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Javachi, Fakai, pronounce. Potato, potato, tomato.
And as you can hear there, you know, I'm always gonna keep it real with y'all. You know, I'm not the type of person that's just gonna tell you anything. You know, I'm always gonna be transparent and keep it real with y'all because I do care about you, my YouTube family. Saturation is an amazing tool, but sometimes you just can't use it. Listen to how it literally shrunk the 808. I literally saturated it and got less bass, bruh, which is crazy. So saturation is a good tool to make things bigger, but it can also make things smaller. Like that decapitator plugin, unfortunately, I haven't been able to figure it out yet, which is so crazy because so much people love it. But that's the thing about all of these tools that we use. It doesn't matter. Don't, you know, I see people making videos about, oh, this person uses this, and that, but does it work for you? That's the question that you got to ask yourself. Does this equipment, does this preset, does this setting that they're using, does it work for you? Because it doesn't matter what it does for somebody else if it doesn't work for you. You know what I mean? So listen to how that 808 literally shrunk. It got smaller. It just killed the vibe. So that's why I like multi-band saturator. You can just pop it in and off, and you can get as much drive as you want. And another thing that will make your mixes sound smaller too is maybe you want to start using some analog model plugins. those plugins will give you the harmonics coming naturally, right? From the tubes, whether it be something like the Fairchild, which is loaded with tubes and transistors, or the Pultec, like this is my little trick that you guys can use too, slap it on your master fader, just try it out. It may or may not work for you. It may or may not give you the sound that you hear in your head, but at least give it a try because it can add some fullness to your mix, right? I love using the Pultec, and look, no boosting EQ, no nothing, just letting it run through. Then a Fairchild, doing a little bit of compression. I usually never do it, but it's probably really only like a dB.
Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no.
You feel me? Nothing crazy, right? But in the way that it did kind of work for this song, also something you might possibly want to avoid too is mixed bus compression for rap music where you have the 2-track beat. Now, if you're doing the whole mix from scratch, you could probably use it for sure, it will definitely help you do less compression, because if you can do 1 dB on the master fader, that's way better than you doing a lot of compression, through the rest of your mix, trying to control this kick, this, hi-hat, all of this information, is vocal, all of that stuff, right? So that, I want to segue into why compression is very important, right? Because depending on, how you do the attack and release settings, you can literally shrink your song. Like you can literally make your song sound smaller. If the attack is too fast and you clamping down on that signal too quick, right? Attacking it quickly, right? Which would be like a 7 attack on an 1176, it will make your mix sound smaller. And if the release is too slow and it's holding on to that signal for too long and not letting go of it, it will, hold on to that characteristic. It won't let the, the signal come through in the certain way that it's supposed to. So I'm not going to talk. Let me literally show you how it's going to make this vocal sound smaller.
Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no need to announce it. I pay what I weigh and increase with them ounce. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce it. Yeah, part of my French, but it's how I pronounce. Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. Potato, tomato, tomato, Javinci, Givenchy, for Kai pronounce. I'm staying in silence, no need to announce it. I pay what I weigh and increase with them ounce.
So no frills, no crazy magic tricks, no nothing like that. Literally, if you are using compressors that have too much fast attack and with too much slow release, now there's nothing wrong with using it. Keep your mind open. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do anything. I will never do that. I'm only just gonna give you a suggestion and try to guide you, along the way so I can help you out, right? You can use the fast attack compression, but it just depends, it depends, like, what does it sound like? Just because somebody said, oh, well, you have to use a compressor to limit the peaks. Well, you got too much peaks. You got to control your peaks, man. Like, what is the music telling you? I don't care what somebody's telling me, right? I care what the music is telling me. I'm going to listen to the music before I listen to anyone else above all, right? So pay attention. I had a slower attack, right? And I had a faster release. So I'm letting more of that, transient come through. So the sound is more open, even though I literally was doing the same amount of gain reduction, was 3 dB, which you definitely saw right there, 3 dB, right? The sound sounded smaller because that transient was getting clamped down on faster, right? And, the release time as well. You see, when I made the release all the way slow, it was just clamping down onto that signal, holding down onto that waveform. So it couldn't be as big as it wants to, right? So that's kind of what's making your mixes sound smaller sometimes too. If the attack is too fast and the release is too slow, so play around with it, And after that, the next thing I wanted to talk about is EQ. And who might say something along the lines of, oh, well, if you want to make sure you get a really clean vocal, what you should do is you should be using an extremely steep filter, something along the lines of like this, They would tell you that you got to use a very steep filter, but you have to understand too, with the steepness of the EQ, right? Especially like low pass, especially with high pass specifically, right? When you use a smoother EQ, it's still letting some of that low end come through. Just because you're doing a filter, that doesn't mean you're getting rid of all of it, right? But when you do a very steep filter, like something like brick wall like this, I literally seen somebody try to do this and try to sell it like, oh yeah, this is gonna make your vocal sound clean. And that's what, there's a lot of information out there, but don't worry about it, guys. Just do what works for you. It doesn't matter, what I say, or it doesn't matter what anybody says. It matters what works for you, what the music is telling you to do, right? So if you use something steep like this, you're just you're just cutting off an excessive amount. You know, sometimes maybe the steep of the slope of the EQ that you're using is too steep. You're cutting off too much low end, right? And that's literally making your mix sound smaller because your human ear uses the low end because your human ear uses that low end information to determine the size, you know. You know, usually people who have a lot of weight on them, usually their voice is a little bit deeper. So your brain already knows, you know, weight and low end is tied together like a knot, right? So that's all I really have for today. And, you know, of course, like I said, again, try to use some of the analog model plugins like NLS channel to add some more harmonics, add some more of the richness in the harmonic density, you know, that it will give you some of the saturation in the cream that them boys got back in the day automatically from the gear and the consoles that made their mixes sound so big and full. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. I do appreciate y'all. If y'all do have any more ideas for content or any questions down below, let me know. I'm more than happy to get to it. Thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Appreciate y'all. Peace.